Welcome to RCR Wireless News. I'm Martha DeGrasse, and I'm here with Mike Wolfe. He is Director of Technical Sales at CommScope. Mike, thanks for making the time
Hi,
today.
Martha. We appreciate the invitation to be with you today. Thanks.
You've been involved with DAS for quite a while now, and I'd like to hear how the perception is changing with the venue owners that you talk to. I'm guessing that people are starting to realize that they need a DAS or some kind of connectivity, and that the sales process is now going to be more about education than about telling people exactly what a DAS is. They might already know, right?
Correct. I think with today's digital lifestyle, everybody pretty much has come up to speed with the fact that there's so much data use with people going to sporting events now, whether they're uploading videos, doing Instagram or things like that. So it's fairly well known that the data demands that are there are going to vastly exceed what the macro network can provide. So, and there's been many successes over the last few years. For example, we installed the DAS in the Dallas Cowboys stadium for AT&T back several years ago for the Super Bowl. That turned out to be a great success, adding over 40 sectors of capacity into that stadium, improving kind of the business case that DAS can provide the type of capacity and coverage that's needed under the LTE network to support those kind of applications. So today, many new venue owners who don't have DAS infrastructure installed are coming to us, kind of recognizing our background in making these systems play correctly, and they're coming to us for expertise, and we are educating a lot of them on what DAS can provide to them, both for capacity and coverage within a stadium or any other type of large venue.
And are you mostly installing neutral host DAS systems?
I would say there is quite a high percentage of that. The business case seems to work out favorably there, where a venue owner can pay to have a system installed, and then they can collect revenue from multiple different operators to help accelerate the ROI on the equipment. So that's quite a common business model. There's also venues out there where there could be a single host operator in certain cases, but I think the multi-host is probably the more popular business model now. So.
Now, you mentioned that at Cowboys Stadium you worked with AT&T. Was that neutral host or just AT&T?
I think it was mainly AT&T was like I guess I would call them like the anchor tenant on the DAS. I think today there are other operators operating on there as well, but we led the design of that system. We did the installation, the commissioning and all that, and we worked with AT&T along the way to make sure that their requirements were met as well as the requirements of the Dallas Cowboys organization.
Great. And then in addition to working with venues, you work directly with the carriers, right? And I'm guessing you're seeing some acceleration there?
Correct. We've worked with all the carriers globally at this point to try to get our equipment approved through the various headquarter groups that have to approve equipment. So, in fact, we're in the process of certifying this IONU equipment here that's in the booth today with all those customers as well. So that's correct. We do work on both sides with the carriers and with the venue owners.
So each new generation has to be certified for each carrier's network?
Correct. There's definitely a vetting process that the equipment has to go through to make sure that it meets all that particular carrier's standards. Standards do vary from carrier to carrier to some degree, so we do a lot of testing in those environments.
Absolutely. Now let's talk a little bit about small cells. You mentioned the neutral host business model working out pretty well with DAS, but can the same thing work with small cells? Can carriers co-locate on a small cell?
I think we're trying to discover, how that business model is going to work in the small cell realm. I mean, we do think of DAS as being part of a small cell ecosystem, but if you're talking about just like the single metro cell type radios that are out there today, those are so tightly integrated together with only a single baseband capability. It's really designed for a one operator use. It doesn't support neutral host features. So if you take that into account, you'd almost have to look at a case where you're trying to convince multiple operators to install their own equipment on a given site, which the economics of that may or may not make sense. We're going to be talking more about that in one of the panels later at the show today. So
yeah, we hope to have video of that as well. So what are the carriers saying to you about small cells? I know that we heard from Wells Fargo yesterday. Jennifer Fritchie had been meeting with the carriers and saying that they're all very eager to use small cells and DAS to densify. But small cells specifically, what are the carriers saying to you?
They're definitely very focused on small cells becoming a major part of their network. We see the numbers getting pretty large over the next year or two. It's an accelerating deployment plan that they have in most cases. So I think what they're struggling with is they know that The majority of their data traffic originates indoors. So I think they're really looking at in-building coverage, in-building capacity as one of the first greenfields that they need to solve the network experience in an indoor situation. And then as a secondary plan, I guess, that they have, they're also looking at what they can do to augment their macro network as well, outdoors. So they're probably focusing 80% of their time on indoors right now, but they're also doing significant deployments outdoors. We heard AT&T say this morning that they have outdoor small cells trials, at least in like 30, I think he said 30 states.
Right, right. And he didn't mention Wi-Fi integrated with small cells, but I know that AT&T has talked about that in the past. Do you hear a lot about small cells that integrate Wi-Fi connectivity?
Yeah, if you look at some of the OEM manufacturers' roadmaps, they pretty much mostly include some form of Wi-Fi integration, where the carrier can manage the degree of traffic that gets supported over Wi-Fi versus the licensed bands.
Right.
So I think that's an important factor, that it's got to be managed end to end. And I think there's some security features that also need to be implemented as well. But
okay, Mike, anything else that you'd like to bring up today?
I just want to highlight the fact that as part of this strategy for CommScope to be an enabler of today's LTE coverage with ubiquitous content down to the user device, that we have platforms like the IONU over here that kind of offer a faster way to deploy DAS, a faster way to get capacity where it needs to be. And then I think we're going to give you a demonstration of some of that later. But anyway, we think solutions that can help the operators bring more coverage and capacity to the market faster are where we're spending most of our focus today.
Sounds like a good place to be focused. All right, Mike Wolfe, CommScope, thank you very much.
Thank you, Martha. I appreciate it.